10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
We've got Brenda Palmer in the building.
What's poppin'?
Brenda,
I'm happy to be here.
happy to have you here.
So happy to have you here. Entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur.
You better break that word down. Just like that.
Entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur. It's how it's spelled, guys. It's how it's spelled.
Entrepreneur. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, man.
Producer, artist, creator,
Content creator.
content creator,
Wow, guys. I'm just a humble servant.
kingdom maker. I just wanted to rhyme it. I'm going to be honest. We got Brenda in the house.
What's up, y'all?
Brenda, how you doing?
I'm good. I am super excited to be here.
We're in an
Awesome.
office space.
It's like, we should just let the phone ring.
Yeah, we're in an office space. So if you hear,
Office-like things, just...
Context.
it's
Content.
it's honestly a part of the vibe.
It is.
It's like welcome to the office.
Welcome to the office.
Oh, hello.
God is calling you.
God's calling.
That's what it is. God is calling you.
That's for somebody right now.
As
They
for
need
somebody,
to hear
you
that.
need to hear that, and you need to pick up the phone. God is calling you.
Somebody right now,
Somebody
I believe.
right now.
I
God
believe.
God is calling
This
you.
is a sign. Answer the phone.
You need to answer. Answer the call.
We're 2 minutes and 50 seconds in, and God is already starting
Listen,
to call
he's
your name.
already here. Okay,
Someone's
He is
let the phone
calling
ring too long.
too many times.
Time to pick
You have
up.
pressed decline, and the Lord said, "Answer."
And he's
said,
calling you again.
You know
He's
what-
calling you again.
You know what some of my favorite like remixes are the remixes of telephone rings on Apple phones, on iPhones. Do you know
Oh,
how do you
yeah,
heard
yeah.
them?
Yeah,
it's
I think I have one. I have one.
It's like
Mine's is that one. I have
Really?
like a hip-hop
No
one.
way.
It's like,
I haven't even
it's
heard
like-
that.
Oh, I'm gonna play it
I
later.
haven't looked at phone tones, ringing tones in
because
so long.
usually our phones are on silent. Now.
Yeah, totally.
It used to-
My
It
phone's
used to
like
be a
never
thing,
rings.
though.
it used to be the thing, like
It
getting a
was.
ringtone.
And you
like-
let it ring so people can hear it for a little
Then you get like a song that's on there, and you're like, "That's right.
you see
That's
that?
me. That was my phone."
while. Weak.
I think the worst thing though is when you call somebody and they have a playback.
Oh,
They
I
have a
used to
playback song
hate the
and it
playback.
sounds terrible.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember ringback tones.
Ringback tones.
Heck was a ringback?
It's some Paramore song. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Terrible
I'm in the
quality.
business of men. I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to call.
I don't even hear the song right now.
Can you just answer the phone? I don't want to hear elevator music.
And you know they're looking at you call knowing that you're listening
Yeah.
to it, and they just
They're
sit
like,
there,
let it ring for a
for a little bit.
Yeah. I want them to hear this song. 2004, baby. 2004. Take them way back.
Oh, that is funny.
That's too good. Well, we have Brenda here, and we're so glad that we have you here. But we want to let the people know who you actually are. So, we're in this where we're talking about social media today and its impact on us, on our brains, on relationships, and you have a pretty rich history in media and kind of social media and content creating. And so, why don't you tell the good people about it?
Yeah. Yeah, guys. So I feel like, I think I just identify as a creative because I feel like I can go in any space. I just like to create. I think I've probably been in like media, production, entertainment space, maybe roughly for like 10 years, which I didn't realize that. It makes me feel kind of old, actually. But then it makes me think like people got to start putting respect on my name now. 10 years in, 10 years
decade
in the
under your
game.
belt.
Okay, it's a decade. Whoa.
Where my money
Where
at?
my money at? Okay, it's like I'm gonna walk in like 10 years, decade.
10 years.
Decade.
Put that on the job
Put that
apps.
Yeah, no, but I think it's a great space to live in. I love media. I love creating content because it's the thing that keeps progressing with life. Like I never get bored, and I feel like it's a space that continues to evolve, and learning to evolve with it is a task. But I love it. I think like, you know, like not to be all super deep, but like God is the creator. And I feel like he gave us the same gifts that he used to like separate heaven and earth that lies on the inside of us.
Right.
And sometimes people feel like I'm not a creative. We all are because we're
Right.
made in the image and likeness of him. And so I love the opportunity to like go into a space and be able to create or make a business a creative space. Because sometimes they're all like structural and like things have to make sense. It's like, no, let's just try this.
Right.
And so, I've enjoyed doing it. Everything from most of my experience has been in the digital space, so like creating content for like YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. I worked on a television show, and even on the television show, I was the person who created the content to go on social.
Right.
And so I did that. I've worked for BET Awards. I've done some for Essence magazine. Like I've been able to like accomplish a lot because I've only been in LA for 5 years, and I've been able to kind of do a lot of that. When I first finished school, I was a videographer for a girl who did red carpet interviews. So I used to like set up the camera and just like have at it, which was cool because she was a woman and I was a woman. We just out there on the red carpet, which is really intense. Okay, it's really intense.
Is it?
So we did, yeah, like because. And she was like, she worked for the Chicago Tribune, but she did like the pop culture section or whatever. So we would get to go to like movie premieres or like major events. I remember going to like Steve Harvey Foundation had an event like downtown at the Hyatt, which is a huge thing. And it was like Dwayne Wade was there, Holly Robinson Pete, like all of these celebrities. And I'm like having like a dress with the camera, like mad weird. And it was so crazy because like soon as I finished grad school, I just bought a camera.
Right.
I didn't really like, I'm just like, whatever, like I just want to create stuff. But that helped me get into a lot of rooms. Even when I came to LA, like having a skill. So I did like I did magazine shoots, like I would do B-roll and capture that. And so like my first couple months here, I got to work on a magazine. So like capturing content. So it's kind of like I would just buy something and then somebody's like, hey, I need a videographer. Like, all right, cool, let's do it.
I got a video camera.
Yeah, and I didn't really know what I was doing because I've always been in production, but I know, like, I have those skill set. And so that kind of, like, opened the door for other opportunities. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool.
You've had a lot of different mediums of media.
Wow. See what you did there.
Videography, you know, posting photos and then also on a magazine format. It's like, did you actually work on what went inside the paper magazine?
No, so it was like it was a digital release of a magazine, and so I captured like the B-roll, so all of the promo videos that they use to. It's like when someone does a shoot, then there's like a release of content for like what happened in that day, and it was like Jordan Fisher. They were doing Rent live. It was like coming on ABC. And so this magazine was like covering them. It was like Mario the singer. And so I just got to like capture the day and just be there. It was pretty cool.
Opposed to Mario the plumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like not Mario from Mario Brothers, like not Mario and Luigi, the other Mario.
Yeah.
Cool. You said something about like how media evolves in the creation process. And you've got 10 years on your belt. I'm curious, what have you noticed shift from 10 years ago to now? Yeah. When it comes to media, social media?
Yeah, I think when we were first getting, like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but like Facebook, you couldn't even get on if you weren't in college. It was like it was only for college students when it first came out, and I was definitely not in college when it first came out. So what started off as like a way to connect with people has now become like it's like a new space. It's literally like people make money off of it. You can have a whole job. We're releasing like actual shows, like television shows are being released on social media platforms. So it has evolved from like what was just like, okay, my kid's going to school or my best friend's going to school and I want to be able to connect with them. So what was just for networking is now an entire space where we have like, it's almost like television. It's literally taking people away from television. Like I'm seeing like actual daytime TV shows being canceled on networks because they aren't having the audience, but like being like fruitful on streaming platforms. Right. So like now we've created a whole nother realm. So people consuming content on their cell phones in their hands right away in their time versus like we wanted to watch. You didn't want to miss something. Right. Or like if there was an award show coming on, you would put the tape in the VCR to record it. So you wouldn't. And now we've created a space where like now we have on demand. Nobody's really watching TV live now. But if you want someone to engage live, so like if you're on a TV show, now I have to get my cast to live tweet so that people will engage with the show in real time. Because if not, people watch it whenever they want to. And so they're like, now we're tying like the like not real world and television, but we are, because now we're connecting with so I can like tweet the person that I'm watching on TV about what I'm watching. Right. So there is still this like connection point, but it also gives us access to people we wouldn't necessarily have access to. Like I couldn't watch Barney and then like tweet Barney, be like Barney, just hi guys, hi guys. You know, like I can't do
responding to a tweet. Barney responding to tweets.
It's like what's happening? But or I like can't go to a restaurant and be mad about my order and then
Right.
tweet like Wendy's, my sandwich was cold, and Wendy's like, we're sorry, we wouldn't do that to you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so it is still connection. It's just 10 times more, and it can be a little invasive too. Like,
Yeah.
we all have access to each other, which I feel like creates, it makes people feel like they know you.
Right.
When they don't really, you
Yeah.
know, like I get that all the time. Like, yeah, like I'm like, I've never seen you a day in my life. But because we give people access consistently, we're always posting, we're always saying where we are. Like, and I think you said this earlier, like it's a curated world.
Right.
So you're only seeing what I'm allowing you to see, and
Right.
you're only experiencing the part of me that I've curated for this space.
Yeah.
And I don't think we sometimes think that. And so I can make an assumption about who you are based off what you post, and it could be completely opposite.
Right.
Right.
And so I think it is like it's taking connection to a different level, whereas it was like write on my wall or say happy birthday or send a message or like,
Right.
hey, I'm doing fine. This is what's going on in college, to like now like we are detailing our entire lives and also we are invading the lives of others.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we love it.
Yeah.
We love it.
We love to hate it or we love it.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
think it's like I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
What does that mean?
It's like I love it for what it is, but I
Right.
also don't like, and this is something I'm just stepping into now. I feel like because I guess a brand is being created, it wasn't intentional. I think I have a podcast and I've been on certain platforms which now like give people more access. And so now like I may go on a date and I feel like someone knows my entire life before they even meet me.
Like they can go on social media,
They see your
see
stuff.
your
listen to
posts,
my
your stories, listen to your podcast.
And now there's an expectation of who they're gonna get, and that is not necessarily like
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that is the curated Brenda, which isn't like me not being authentic. It's just like social media is almost a job now. So
Right.
it's like, this is who I gotta be here because I'm like fulfilling that. But then I meet a person and they're expecting that Brenda, and they're probably not gonna get that Brenda because I'm
Right.
actually very like, I like to be quiet and I like to like just be chill.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
most people wouldn't think that because that
Right.
isn't like what they see. And so that is kind of like it's like a space that I'm like learning to navigate. One as like, okay, I also could just be myself, but being able to feel safe to be myself, because now there's this expectation that I need to meet outside of that space.
Right.
And so like learning to like balance that all.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about curated versus authenticity, which I think is like a very important thing to talk about when it comes to social media, because you literally can create an identity
Yes.
on social media where, I mean, it's in like the dating world, it's called like catfishing. You know,
Yes.
Yeah, you can.
you literally create an entire different, people lie about their height, their weight, how they look,
Who they
edited photos,
Yes.
who they are, what they do. And it's something that really, really kind of bothers me is the living life for social media, where it's like, I'm not going to the beach to go to the beach. I'm going to the beach so I could take a picture of me at the beach.
Yep.
Right.
And there's like, there's this distance from actually being in the space because you're in this new space, like you were talking about, where you can shape everything that people see and perceive about you. And when they can, when they perceive what you want them to perceive, it even gives you kind of almost these false ideas of your own self, So how do you balance that personally, being authentic with making that much content and having that? How do you balance being authentic, but then also understanding the curated me? It doesn't mean it's not me, but you know what I mean? How do you balance it?
I think like I like take breaks often, and I feel like whenever it starts to feel like work, it's not authentic.
Right.
And so I get in a space where I'm like, if I don't want to create a video, I'm not going to create a video. Like, and setting those boundaries, because the moment I do something because I feel like somebody, like, then it feels like it's an obligation, then I've missed it. Because I do like, and that's something I had to work on, because it's like, okay, I gotta have a video for this and I gotta have a video for this. And I'm like, ugh, no, I don't want to do that. Because
Right.
now I'm making up stuff to say, and it's like, bro, what is happening right now? And so I think always staying true to like, am I doing this because I genuinely want to do this? So like I try to post a video every morning. It is the most authentic. So I'm literally walking out of my house and whatever comes to my mind is what I'm gonna say. And then
Yeah.
if I'm like walking out and it's like, I'm trying to put words together, I'm like, oh, no video today. Like it's not meant to be. And I'm taking the pressure off of having to show up for people.
Right.
Like social media isn't that for me. It is that for some people. Like some people got to post because there's a check on the other side of that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like for now, I don't have to do that. And so whenever it's not an authentic moment, when it's like I gotta like conjure up something to make this happen, and no, I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
Like, nope, won't be posting today. Which is
Right.
why I didn't make it a thing. I just randomly one day started like posted a video like, it's Saturday, yo, have fun. Like do something fun.
Right.
And then the next day I had something else to say, and I was like, okay, this could be kind of cool.
Right.
But I never said like, here's your motivational moment, here's my 1 minute like, because the moment it becomes a thing, now it's like, now I have to do it, and I don't want it
Right.
to be that. I want it to be a genuine, like, I had this thought, or I was talking to a
Right.
friend and I want to share this with you guys. And so I try to like do social media that way. And you brought something up, like I'm going to the beach to create a moment.
Right.
No, I'm at the beach and I'm having a fun time. I want to share that.
Right.
And so it's out of the place, like, why are you doing this? And the thing is, like, I'm going to post a video, whether it has 10 likes or whether it has 20 or whether it has 200. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not doing it for that. So usually I post it and I don't look at it again. I turn,
Right.
like, my notifications are not on my phone because that shouldn't be what's driving it. And a lot of times it is.
Right.
It's like, okay, I've known people to like post stuff. I used to do it too. Like I would post stuff, and if it had 5 likes, I'm taking it down. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? That didn't
Yeah.
hit.
It didn't
That
hit.
didn't
That didn't hit right.
hit.
It
That
didn't
didn't
hit
hit.
right. Yeah.
But it's like, hey, but it
Redo.
hit for the 5 people that liked it. So that should
Right.
be like, if it's authentic, whoever it's for is like who it will be for. I've also seen it like get 5 likes the first day, and then over the course of the week, it's hit 500 likes because there's algorithms and there's all these things that play into that. So it's just like, I think you have to settle in why you're doing what you're doing. And if I'm genuinely doing this, like, because it's an authentic thing I want to share and I'm hoping that it helps someone else, then that should be the basis.
Right.
And whenever I get in a space where I'm like trying to do stuff, I shut it down. Like, all right, I'm going to get off for a while. And I take breaks often. Like, I'm only posting in authentic moments. Like my stories are like quick things, but like actual content is, I try not to put too much thought into it because I do that for everybody else. It's like,
Yeah.
but I don't want it. I just want it to be fun.
Right.
Like when
For
it's
your own
not
space.
fun,
Yeah.
then I don't want
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like been our, struggle even with the podcast sometimes is like, well, like wanting to make it light and not feel like this duty. And we've been talking a lot about like, what are we actually doing this for? You know what I mean? And if we're doing it just to like teach certain things or whatever, or have conversations, you have to understand why you're actually, putting out content and because it's like, this is a joy. This is what we did before we had a podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So we enjoyed conversations with each other, and we just decided one day, man, some of these conversations are really life-giving. We should put them out there,
Yes.
And then it becomes like this weekly thing, and sometimes it is a grind, you know what I mean? And so I think there's one thing when it's your job, you have to put it out because you're actually, you got a paycheck, like you said, on the other side. But there's also like a sense of calling,
Yep.
inside of you. So how do you maintain authenticity when you don't want to do it, but you're called to it, because I think that's a sense too, is like, I feel like there's an inspiration on what we're doing or on us creating. Like you said, he's the creator. And so we're creating just as he's creating.
Yeah.
So there's almost like this call. So that's a greater drive. It's like, I don't feel authentic, but God, I'm going to do this because I'm called to create. And if I don't create today, then I'll get lazy,
Yeah.
or if I don't do this podcast every week, I fall out of a rhythm. So how do you even balance that,
Yeah.
that call on you?
No, that is so true. Because I've had plenty of times where I'm like, I don't want to do this. And it's
Right.
just because I don't want to do it. But I think that there is a grace for what you're called to. Like even when it's tough, even when you don't want to do it. And I feel like those are like the most beautiful moments because I'll experience something that somebody from South Africa will DM me and be like, I needed this today.
Jeez.
And I'm all
Yeah.
like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Glad it hit for you. You know what I'm saying? Which
Yeah.
means like, okay, it is bigger than me. This is
Right.
like, God, this is something that you want to do.
Right.
And so it's like leaning into that. And I think like understanding your heart posture for when you do something. Like if I'm after the likes and I'm after the shares and I'm after the exposure, then that's the wrong motive because that's going to waver and it's going to, and if you are only doing it off of that, it may not ever hit. You know what I'm saying? And so if it is like, God is calling me to do this, then I got to do this. I got to show up. I always say like, man, man, someone's life could depend on what that one scroll
Right.
or that one day that I chose not to do it. They needed that. And so it's like, okay, God, give me the strength to do this even when I don't want to do it. And
Right.
that does happen. Like with my podcast, it was like that. I would almost get like depressed when I wasn't doing it. And I never intended for it to be a thing. I just was
Right.
like, hey, I'm gonna try a podcast. My friend sends a word. She's like, hey, God said whatever he's telling you to do, take it serious. I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'll do that.
Yeah. I'm gonna start a podcast, girl. She's like,
take it serious. And I'm like, oh, snap.
Right.
Okay, cool. Like in
Right.
the same way I just went out and bought a camera, I just went out and bought a microphone. I didn't know
Right.
anything about a podcast. I post a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
the first episode, I just start sharing it on my social media.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone, like one of my mentors who has like 1 million followers, shares it, the only thing on her story for 24 hours. And people just start listening to it.
Dang.
And then I just was like, God just started giving me strategy for it. So then when it first came out, every Friday I would do an Instagram live with like some of my friends to like talk about the theme of that week's episode.
right.
And I did that for like the first year. I did that all the time. And so I feel like when God is calling you to do something, you'll see how big it gets without you even trying because it's aligned with what he wants to happen. And that is genuinely what happens. That's what happened with those videos. I'm telling y'all, that's crazy. I never expected it. And so many people reach out like, I started doing videos today too because you do one every day. And I'm like, great. I don't do one every day, but I think the Lord is it's good for you. Like, I love that. And I love how like people are like, man, I really needed this today. Or
Right.
I run into somebody and they're like, man, this is getting me through the week. And so I think there is a sense of calling, but you have to balance your motives behind what you're doing.
Right.
And when they start to shift, because it will blow up and it will get good and people will like it and they'll start hitting you up and then it can shift easily. So you have to stay grounded and rooted on the
Right.
why you're doing this, because that will be the thing that sustains you.
Right.
There's something that just came to mind when you were talking about all, some getting likes, some not getting likes, some
Right.
blowing up, is the concept that the like button doesn't even need to exist in the sense of the content that we put out there. And so if we just put out content to get likes, it's I wonder what it would be like if we couldn't see how many people were liking our posts
Oh, absolutely.
and how much that would change what we actually put out there.
Right.
Whether it's just the content because we can get so caught up. And I remember
Right.
going through college, having that experience, looking at a post, if you didn't get a lot of likes, like, dang, man,
You're like,
You
man,
did.
nobody liked
shoot,
it.
man, people didn't like that. I thought about that.
and I would look down on people that only got like 3 likes. I'm like, you guys
For real.
stop.
You shouldn't have posted
You got
that.
3 likes, bro. You should take that down.
Yeah.
You got 3 likes. It's like,
And all this social pressure that gets created,
Yeah.
and even in this conversation of feeling called to something, if that can
It would
so
make you-
easily become
Absolutely.
a distraction, right? And if we feel like God's calling us to post something, we can so easily be caught in a distraction of looking at the number of likes rather than how much did it impact the people that actually saw this.
Yep.
I feel like that's why I never posted a lot on social media when like Facebook was a thing or MySpace or, when I was on that, because it was like if I kind of like waited out. I think subconsciously, if I only post like the biggest things every once in a while, then it's like a big dopamine hit of likes,
Yep.
because it's like,
Yep.
oh, Aaron hasn't been on a while. He's got a new girlfriend. Everyone's like, like,
It's all the big
Yeah,
relationship
yeah.
things. People just love seeing
Oh,
people.
yeah.
in
Dude,
relationships.
it's crazy when I look at my, I'll post our podcast video. It's like deep content. I'm like, if you listen to this, it could change your life. And you get like 35 likes. You're like, dang.
You said.
And then I post a picture of me and Abby. It's like 200.
I'm like, so what do you guys care about?
Yeah.
But the Lord is more important.
Yeah. I'm like, dang, bro, don't you want to change your life?
Yeah.
But-
Oh my gosh. Oh, do you have something to say?
No,
on
go
that?
ahead.
How have you seen this play into society's values and even an expression of values? Because
Right.
right
That's
there, I
good.
think is a clear expression of what's important to people, at least in our social context.
Yeah.
Right. You post something that's like really inspiring, which can get a lot of likes for sure. But you post something about a relationship moment, a big relationship moment, you're almost guaranteed to get a bunch of likes just because that's something that seems important to us,
Yeah.
right? As a community culture. How have you seen social media affect or maybe express values in society?
I think people like what they identify with. And I feel like it's not to say that the video you posted wasn't inspiring. That takes
Right.
time for me to listen to it, and then I gotta process it and I gotta apply it to my life. Versus like, oh, Aaron is fine. People are nosy. It's unfortunate,
Right.
but people are nosy. They want to know your business. They want to know like what's happening, what's going on. It's
Right.
like why blog sites are like like the Shade Room is one of the biggest tech companies. Period.
Block sites?
Blog
Oh,
sites.
blog sites.
Blog sites. Yeah.
I was like, what's a block site? What?
what is that? like,
This is some new strange
I know. I was
thing.
thinking about that too.
Said,
Blog site.
Blog
sites, yeah,
blog
yeah.
sites are so big. It's because like people want this inside scoop on your life, and so I think like that is our values have shifted. I think like what we would normally use television for is like people watch television to escape their real world. It's like,
Right.
oh, I can get lost in someone else's life, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and I can do that. Well, we're now doing that with social media. It's like what's going on in your life, so I can ignore what's happening in mine. Because it's like it's a deflector.
Right.
It's like what we
Right.
use, and I think it has shifted our values. We don't care about you unless we know about your business. It's like I'm not really buying. If more. Let's go with churches. There are some churches who have pastors that are personalities because they share their lives on
Right.
social media. And so when people go to their church, they feel like, man, I really know my pastor. Whereas you'll get a pastor who doesn't share, and it's like, you're not really pastoring the people. You're not where the people are. It's like,
Oh.
I
Wow.
just don't want you in my business. And I think it's okay for you not to be in my
Right.
business. But because people feel like they are owed that. They are owed insight into what's going on in your
Wow.
personal life. People feel like because we've allowed them. It's like why we watch reality TV. It's like, oh, because I had to know what's happening in their life. And it's
Right.
like they got drama. It's
Right.
like all this stuff. And it's like, no, how do we get there?
Right.
But
Wow.
also I feel like people are craving personal connection, even when it's like overboard, even when they shouldn't have that. And so it's like, if you want me to spend my money, tell me about you. It's like, who are you? What do you value? What do you care about? It's like, it's being applied in places maybe that it shouldn't be. But I think now because we've created this space where people have access to people's lives all the time, like
Right.
you meet someone, the first thing you do is, oh, what's your Instagram?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, and now I'm going to figure out who you are from your Instagram. You apply
Yeah.
for a job, they want to know your handles.
Right.
So it's
Right.
like, why is who I am online or who I've curated myself to be
Right.
hold so much weight in other spaces? Like, I got to get a job and you need to see
Yeah.
my Instagram. It's now become like our resume or our timeline of our
Right.
lives. And so I think people just want access. And when you deny them that, they make a decision about you, or you hiding something, or maybe like I am a little like, you don't have social media, like, because I know people that are like,
Right.
no, I'm just not on there. And they live healthier lives.
Yeah.
They live healthier lives because we all can lie. It creates this comparison thing. Like I remember when I decided to stay in Chicago and not move to LA right after school, I was miserable because I'm like looking at all my friends on Instagram,
LA.
like, and I'm like, they don't even know the Lord, and look how they're living life, and I'm just here, like I don't think it's fair, you know,
Right.
like, and now I've created like this comparison thing, like, and I'm never settling in like what God is actually asking me to do in this moment. And I think we do that. We are suffering from like depression and anxiety, and a lot of it is rooted in my life doesn't look like that person's
Right.
Right.
curated life. Because that is
Yeah.
not nobody's real entire life is on their social media, which is
Right.
why I've been a little intentional about sharing the hard moments. I'm
Right.
like, here's what's happening. Today I don't got it. You know what I'm saying? Like, or I had to take a break because I was losing it and I didn't know I was losing it. And so like being honest, because everybody has those moments.
Right.
And the more we share them, the more we can normalize being normal.
Right.
And not like everything is on the
Yeah.
up and up.
Yeah, I think it's a real problem because you get like these extreme highs of people, and it creates this this false expectation for even what life looks like.
Yep.
Daryl and I were talking earlier about what relationships even look like. Like you see some of these, you know, I don't know, they have like the couple Instagrams and they do like all these like couple shots and you're like, you're the cutest couple I've ever seen, you know, and it creates this idea of what I should be expecting.
Yep.
You know, what I need
Yep.
even, you know, and then when you get into the real world and you see kind of these relationships and they don't match up with maybe some of those standards, you're like, what the heck? You know, I thought this is what relationships look like, or I thought this is
Yep.
what life was supposed to look like, because you're not seeing life is mostly mundane.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I wake up in the morning,
Right.
I brush my teeth, right? I
go to work.
take a shower, I go to work, right? I spend 8 hours doing that, 10 hours doing
Yeah.
that, and then I go home and I read, or and then it's like maybe something happens that I post that's like, this is so funny, right? But it creates this false expectation, I feel like, for even our lives.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that it affects so much.
Yeah,
And-
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say even trying to force those moments, to duplicate what we saw somebody else post,
Yes.
without knowing what it took to get there. Because even
Yes.
if you do see a healthy couple and they're seeing all their highlights,
They got
Right.
some bad ones.
yeah, they have some bad ones, but they could even be a truly healthy couple, right? But then we only see this moment and we try to force the moment without knowing what it took to get there.
Yeah.
And then we become discouraged. We think that it's,
Yeah.
Anyways,
No,
yeah.
I think it also like amplifies and allows you to hide like self-hatred. Because it's like, if I don't like who I am, I can just go online and create somebody else and become this whole different person and never deal with the stuff on the inside of me, because now I can escape it. And so I
Right.
think
Yeah.
it keeps us in a broken state, because we are
Wow.
always like, okay, I don't like this, I can filter it. And we
Right.
aren't just filtering our faces, we're filtering our insecurities, we're filtering things that we're dealing with, we're filtering the things we don't like about ourselves, and I can just post it on here. And actually, like, it's like I don't know if you guys know about this, but there's like a girl maybe like a couple months ago, she's 30 years old, she was Miss America, and then she was like also a correspondent on Entertainment Tonight, and she's also a lawyer. She committed suicide, jumped off
Jeez.
like the 26th
yeah.
floor of her building.
Man.
And everybody that was posting was like, wow, I never would have imagined. She seems so happy. You go on her Instagram, you go on her TikTok, upbeat, posting pictures. She was functionally depressed,
Yeah.
and nobody knew. Her mom
Wow.
only knew maybe 2 or 3 weeks before she decided to take her own life. That is a
Jeez.
problem,
Right.
that you can be suffering in your life day to day, and people around you or people who engage with you on social media every day could never know. And so I think that is the danger of it, because
Right.
I can easily go inside myself, be the most miserable person, and show up on social media every day, and then tomorrow I'm gone and people are like, how do we miss this?
Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like even learning that about myself, like, because I'm always on and I'm used to like turning it on even when I don't feel like it. I'm missing the fact that, hey, you're not really doing too good.
Right,
Like, you are
yeah.
you're not okay. And so like more recently, maybe like the last couple of weeks, I like had to sit with, hey, you're not okay.
Right.
Like, you're not good. You are actually like a little depressed. But because I live in a space where I always have to be on, I never have a moment to sit with like, hey girl, you're not good.
Right.
To deal with that
Yeah,
stuff.
to deal with it. Like, hey, you need to process this.
Right.
And so like, I've been posting like a little bit, but not really, because I am like coming out of that space. And I'm also like, okay, God, teach me how to manage this, right?
Right.
Like, there is something that you're calling me to do. There are like people that are called to what's on the inside of me, but not at the expense of myself. That's not the character of God. It's not
Right.
keep suppressing your stuff so you can show it for people. That don't make sense. That's not
Right.
good. And so now I'm like, okay, Lord, walk me through this, like show me what to do so that I'm not putting on for even myself, that I don't even recognize that I'm not good. Like, and there are ways to tell, like for me, it was hindering my body. I'm like gaining all this weight. And then I'm like, the other week my pants burst. I said, wait a minute, something is,
Wait.
I was like expanding, just like gaining weight at a rapid pace.
From social media? Like,
No,
from,
like
what?
just like, I said, Brenda, what is happening?
you were literally getting the feed.
Getting the feed. It was too much of the feed.
Constant feed.
She had too much of
was
the feed.
expanding.
It was
into
a
her.
constant feed. No, I think like I hate this. I think when there is a responsibility to show up, we will continue to do that until we can't anymore.
Right.
In a sense of like, because I got to do this. I got to post this video.
Right.
I got to curate this content. I got to show up at wherever it is. There's a requirement for me to show up. So because of that, I keep going until I can't go anymore.
Right.
And if I didn't have that responsibility, if I wasn't always focused on doing that, showing up for everybody else,
Right.
then it would allow me space to sit with myself. But because I have the ability to create a world where nobody would ever have to see my actual world,
Right.
it keeps me from having to deal with stuff.
Right.
So we have to be aware of like
Yeah.
the signs. Like, what are the signs that you are not with it? Because I'm recognizing that I am like I can be functional and people not know and people
Right.
not have a clue.
Right.
And I don't want to get lost in that world. That's like that's one of my biggest fears though, is that I will be suffering and not recognize it until it's like too late. And
Right.
so like that is like something I'm working on, like being able to balance that and then taking a moment where it's like, no, I'm not showing up today
Right.
because I'm needing the process. I'm needing to do this.
You hear of so many people like just inwardly just struggling so much, you know. I didn't watch it, but like what's her name, Charlie D'Amelio or whatever, she's like that TikTok famous girl. Was that Charlie something? Anyway,
Yeah, we
that
don't-
sounds familiar. But
you
I
don't,
don't know.
okay, whatever.
The name sounds
She does
familiar.
all. She was like one of the first to do that. No, I don't know who that. But like her life is so like drama filled and crazy and wild because it's like this constant
Yep.
pressure to literally just dish out all of this content, and you're like, I just have to. And I could see how that, you know, that marathon race eventually you just can't run any longer, and something happens, you know. And I think a big thing is like you were saying, it's such a noise, like the stimulation of
Yep.
social media, that it could literally just like TV, I guess, movies, that kind of stuff, but it drowns out a little bit.
Yep.
Not completely, because there's still that buzz in the back of
Right.
your mind. It kind of it drowns out some of those hard things that you would otherwise have to deal with.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then you don't deal with your issues. You're
Yep.
not actually present
Right.
in the
No.
moment. I was reading last night about how attention spans are like getting worse
Shorter.
Oh,
and
yeah,
worse
yeah.
and worse and worse.
Yep.
Because what social media does is it puts you in this state of both being fixated on something and scattered at the same time.
Yep, it's true.
So you're completely absorbed in something, but that something is everywhere.
Yep.
So you have
Right.
a constant variety, which is one of like the basic human needs that we have in ourselves, is a need for variety, right? I want new things all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you have this fixation on this thing that's constantly changing, constant variety, and then you just need to refresh, you just need to reload, and then you have a whole different slew of different information, and I think it's making us crazy.
No,
you know, like
absolutely.
where we can't focus. They were saying, you know, your ability to focus on a person when distractions are happening somewhere else, you just can't focus
Nope.
anymore,
Right.
because it's decreasing our ability to focus, because we're
Yeah.
not still on the
Yeah.
inside, right?
And like I feel like even during the pandemic, like just imagine like when you would watch the news, it would be like one story, you'd get to process it, they take a break, you come back.
Right.
Now we are like boom, trauma, boom, couple, then I'm like happy, then I'm like, oh, sad, then I'm like angry. We're getting all of these emotions, we're
everywhere.
up and down, and we're wondering why people are schizophrenic, like
Right.
for real, like we aren't giving our brains, our hearts any time to process things. There's like
Wow.
a consistent feed of all these different emotions. So it's like, man, like boom, it's like, okay, I'm happy, like, oh, look at the little baby. Then two posts
Right.
down, it's like, oh my God, someone got killed. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God.
I'm so-
And
I'm
it's
not
like-
trying to laugh.
No, but it's crazy.
It's like cute
Oh,
little
so
puppies,
true.
and then the next thing you see is like something happening in your crane, and you're like, what's going
you're like,
on?
what the heck is happening? It's
Yeah.
like, and there's no filter
Right.
like for us. So we're like, we're taking in all of this stuff with no outputs or no time to process. And so I think it is highly wise to take breaks, like real ones. Go do something else. Like we were like telling youth the other day, like when you're out with your friends, put your phone up, like
Right.
put it in your bag, put it on the table, like have actual engagement with people, because we don't know how to do that anymore. And I am afraid that the next generation is not going to have any communication skills.
Especially after COVID.
Yeah.
No,
You know, especially after
yeah.
COVID, being at home, like we have a lot of students right now that are a year behind emotional maturity and
Yeah.
development. Like they lost a year of socializing even. So
is
what do you do when
crazy.
you're inside?
Well, they didn't lose socializing,
I
but they
mean,
lost
in-person.
in-person
Yeah.
socializing, right?
Yeah.
Which got replaced with the online
Screens.
and screens and commenting and, you know, looking at all kinds of stuff, taking one
Yeah.
conversation to the next. And it totally does interfere with your ability to communicate in the real world, right? Because we don't communicate the same way on social media that we do in person with somebody. We're just, me and Aaron was talking, he's like, I'm way funnier on social media, you know? Because I can start typing something and be like, wait, no, I'm going to say this instead, you know?
Right.
Or like, I'm way smarter on social media. I could like do this, but then actually I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say this instead. It sounds better. But in person, we don't have that opportunity, and if all of our socialization is being practiced through all these filtering processes and not actually showing up and being vulnerable
Nobody's
and
being
wanting to
real.
appear, and then it's like we practice inauthenticity.
Yep.
Right.
That's true.
I want to say maybe Daryl coined it, but it's this thing called community of projections. It's one of our episodes. It's like our third episode of our podcast, but it's basically like all of us have who we are, and then we have our projections of ourselves.
Yep.
Right. So that the us that we put forward so that everybody can see. Right. And then this happens a lot on social media, right? You could put forth your the projection or what you want people to perceive about you, and then people love that.
Yep.
Right. But the problem with that is when you have a community of people doing that, people end up loving not you, but your projection.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you don't actually feel known because the people that are loving you aren't loving you.
No,
they're loving a shadow.
Yep.
Yep.
Right. And deep inside, we all know that that's not really us.
Not really me.
Right.
Yeah.
It's what I want you to see. And so it feels kind of good because it's like, it is a projection. It's a shadow of me.
Yeah.
It's somewhat me, but it's not actually being known. Because if you really knew me, and I think we all have that, maybe that semi fear down, is if you really knew me, I would be rejected, or I would be shamed. So I have to do this curated
And
version.
it makes you feel. I have two thoughts to that. And I'll use myself as an example, because I think I always say I'm an introvert who was born with an extroverted personality. So I have a personality that draws people, but I really would prefer to be by myself. It's just I just normally I'm cool at home, chilling on my couch by myself. I'm good. But my personality, that even what is presented on social media, or if you see me on a platform, is usually very outward facing, upbeat. It's and I didn't create that on purpose. It's just I can't be on social media you know what I'm saying?
No one would listen to you eventually.
No, that's okay, girl. We don't want this.
Although people are adamantly negative, and then they get followers that way.
Yes.
A lot of the political figures where it's they make it their thing.
Yeah, their thing.
To go after people.
And it's not that. It's this is a part of who I am. It's just not, I don't want to be that every day.
Right.
So I met a person and they're whew, I just know you're a morning person because you're posting those videos in the morning. I'm I'm actually not a morning person. I'm not. I only wake
you
up.
dragging yourself out of bed.
Yeah. And I'm I only learned to wake up early because when I worked at TBN, I lived in LA and the studio was in Tustin. And so I would have to drive 2 hours to work every morning. So I would have to be up at 4, out of the house by 5:20. I became a morning person, but I didn't like it. I drove there and slept in my car for 45 minutes.
Brenda?
Yeah, I had a 4-hour commute every day.
Oh, my
2 hours
goodness.
there, 2 hours back, for a year and a half. Yes.
Oh my gosh, God bless.
No, it was the Lord, because I was bro, what? But yeah, and so it's so then people are meeting me and I have a podcast and I'm very vulnerable and open on my podcast, and people are you just love your feelings. I'm I don't actually.
Yeah.
And so then it's then it's so now I'm dang, am I so much different than what I'm presenting on accident?
Right.
Because it wasn't on purpose. That is who I am.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when I'm with my friends, I'm just chilling. I can be I don't gotta be on. I can just be off. And so there is this journey of learning how to do that, because there is a person that has been created out of who people perceive me to be because of what I create.
Right.
And then there's but this is who I am. And so then you could get in a space where it feels dang, who I am is not enough. Because you want it's almost like a character that you see on TV. It's you, when you meet that person in real life, you want them to be that person. And they're that was just a character, right?
Right.
And so, but because social media rides this line of reality and fiction, or curation rather, it's well, that's not you. It's it is, but not all the time.
Right. Yeah.
And so
yeah.
it's how do we I'm learning how to find the balance in that, where I can feel comfortable to be myself, even if it's not all super upbeat all the time.
Right. I think it's a responsibility of content creators to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and then being a part of a community where people know that people are on a journey.
Yep.
Right. So I think sometimes I don't get nervous about it, but I think, when people adopt things very quickly,
Yep.
especially from people that they care about or that they feel invested in, or they've been a part of their YouTube journey, whatever, since the jump. Right. And so anything they say, they'll just latch a hold of it or whatever, or the positivity that a content creator can bring could just make it feel like, I just need to be like them without doing the hard work that it took that person to be there.
Yep.
Right. So it's like, I'm a result of it. It's like there's 10 years of anxiety behind this piece.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's behind what we talk about, like this knowledge. It's not like we just woke up one day and it's like we knew about the brain or something like that. There's deep things that we've been through. Most of it crap. You know?
No, agreed.
Most of it crap. And so being able to convey that to people, that it's like it's possible, but go on the journey.
Yep.
And to be both curated, where you can be upbeat because I'm going to choose positivity, I'm going to choose joy, but also say, allow yourself to go on the journey, whoever's listening to me, and so I think that's an important responsibility that we have in creating content.
Yes.
Even right now I'm writing, I'm trying to finish this book by the end of the year, right? And I'm writing all this stuff about how good God is, and you get this access to his presence, and it's like, it's not like I experience this all the time, like a constant flood, like I'm just floating in heaven somewhere, right? But it's on this journey where that's actually possible. It's like this weird balance. It's possible, but go on the journey, but experience the pain that goes along with it. There's a cross that comes with that promise.
Absolutely.
So
that's why I think it's important to share the process,
right?
Because we oftentimes are like, this is where I was, this is where I am, but what happened?
Right.
Because I do think that is what people are going to identify with the most, is like the what happened. That's where they're going to be able to see themselves. And then I think it also humanizes you, because sometimes, like what you said, like people latch on to whatever you say, but they also create idols out of you, because they're seeing you and they're like, man, I want to be like that.
Right.
And I'm like, I wasn't like this 2 months ago. Like, you know what I'm saying? There was a journey to get here. And so I do think there is a responsibility of us to share it all, not just the highlights, because people fall in love with the highlights and think it's going to happen like that. And like, no, there was also a process. And actually, of all the things that I share with you, I want you to fall in love with the process.
Right.
Like, what happened? How did I get there? So that when you experience this again, it won't feel the same way, because you now have tools to add or apply to this. And so I think that is a responsibility. And then also there is a responsibility to be integral and live up to the person that you're presenting. And so I had I had something happen, because I feel like influence came really quickly for me, like on accident. Like I wasn't, like some people are like, I want to be an influencer. Like I wasn't trying to be that. And then I learned like that was what was happening. And so I had like I have like a Bible study that I host, and there's like this girl who moved to LA, and she's like, hey, like, can we meet up? Like I have some things I want to like write about. And I was like, yeah, like let's do it. Like let's set up a call. And I didn't go beyond that. And then she reached out again, and I'm like, yeah, like send me an email and I'll get on it. And I kept like doing it. And then she sends me this email and is like, I can't even like watch you, because you didn't really live up to what you said you would do. And it wasn't intentional, but I did give her my word. I did say I'll do this, which I shouldn't have said in the first place. I should have said I'll try to work it out. But because people have access to you, there's like this entitlement of like, I asked, so you should do it. And you said you was going to do it, so you got to do it. So now, like, when people DM me, I'm like, I'm going to really try to do this. I'll try. I'll get to it. I'm very careful, because now that I do have influence, there is a responsibility that I have to be integral. When I say something, because I want to help everybody, but the reality is I can't do that. And so it is a responsibility, like, okay, only commit to what you can do, and also don't feel bad when you can't.
Right.
You sometimes you got to say no, and that no will be more respected than you saying yes and not showing up.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's just a lesson in boundaries in general.
Absolutely.
But actually saying no, we think that it's like in a people pleasing kind of culture, where where we're trying to, especially in social media, it's like we give the people what they want,
Yep.
you know? So you're constantly trying to please people. And then when you don't please them, it's like they get disappointed. You're disappointed in yourself because you didn't,
it's like,
because you didn't please these people. But actually setting those healthy boundaries allows people to respect you more.
Yep.
Like there's some things that I just won't do. There's certain people I just don't have time for,
Yep.
you know, and I actually respect those people who just like you know, they're bigger influencers or whatever, and like probably they're having so many people message them and stuff like that, and they're asking, hey, could you hook me up with this or whatever. And I've heard a lot of people that actually on the come up, you know what I mean, they start getting rich and then everybody's reaching out to them, you know what I mean, can I be a part of this, or I remember you, they're trying to get in, right? So there's all of this different levels, and you actually saying no, like that's not what I'm about. You know, I think that's important to set that, because then it's like, okay, you're a healthy person, you know. And I think people do end up respecting that, even if they don't like it at first. You saying no,
right?
They
They
will
respect it.
respect
I was so talking about these boundaries, and what is a level of vulnerability that you think is actually healthy with social media and not healthy, right? Because we can talk about posting all the good moments, but then you can also expose yourself maybe more than is healthy, right? Because when it comes to vulnerability, it's not necessarily something that everybody needs to know everything about, all the bad stuff you're going through, or all the things you're processing. So how do you determine how much should I post, or just the highlights? What does it look like to be honest and authentic with the struggle, you know, in the journey, in the process? Because that really is what people so often relate with, right? Is the hard things. So they know that someone else is feeling this too.
Yeah.
And it could be encouraging to read someone's post that's like, oh wow, I'm not alone in this. But then what's the healthy boundary when it comes to being vulnerable and authentic?
I think that's a really good question. I feel like when you are being vulnerable and not glorifying the struggle, because sometimes like I come across people, like maybe they're an artist and they're a singer, and every time I see them, like, man, I'm struggling, you know. It was hard for me to walk past that bar and not go in, and you ministering, you have overshared and you probably shouldn't have showed up today, not because you're struggling, but because you are struggling, you know. Like, not that God looks down on it and he can use it, but now you are highlighting this struggle as if we all struggle, but the goal is not to stay in this struggle. Right. And I literally seen an artist 5 years like apart. I seen her one time, 5 years later, she's still saying the same thing. This is a problem.
Right.
We've gone past vulnerability. Now we've gone to excusing your struggle. And now your struggle has become a part of you. Somebody needs to hold you accountable so that when I see you in 5 more years, you're not still saying the same thing. And so I think for me, it's like, I think understanding, I think it goes back to motive, right? Like, what am I trying to get across? Typically I share a lot, like especially like on my podcast. I'm like, and most of it is because I'm processing it right then in that moment.
and it got recorded.
Like, you just happen to have a mic in front of you.
And then I'm like, oh shoot. Like, even on the podcast, I'm like, I don't even know why I'm crying right now. This was not the plan, kind of thing.
15 minutes in.
Yeah. It's like, girl, what is happening? And so like, I think those are the moments that help people the most. But I do agree, like, there's some things you don't have to share, and still you can get the point across, right? So if I'm saying like, man, like this week was rough, you know, I didn't realize that I was still walking through depression, you know, that's enough. I don't have to detail it. I can detail it, but the goal is not so I can revel in depression, but it's so that you can see, like, man, for the last 6 weeks I've been posting videos, you guys have been seeing me upbeat, but here's what was really going on. Here was the struggle. Here was what was happening. Because one, people don't grow from perfection. Right. And they don't grow from being able to see that you always got it. Right. No, I need you to know, like, I got it for like 10 days, but like 5 days before these 10, I was in a bad place. And now, here's what God has done. Like, this is what I've learned from it. And I feel like being vulnerable, you can be in it, but the goal is that you and that person make it beyond that moment, that you don't stay there, and that you don't give people an excuse to stay where they are. And I think that's what happens when we start to glorify a struggle, because now everybody think they got to struggle. Like, you know, I'm gonna go do that too. No, shut up. Don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, if you happen to also be struggling, you're not.
I'm gonna turn up as well.
Right. You're right. Let me go get a testimony. It's like, no,
I'm gonna go find a testimony right now. I'll be right back.
Right.
No.
It's such an interesting balance. I feel like this is why especially early Christian hip hop music was so hard for me to listen to.
Okay.
Because it was so much about being so human and broken.
Yep.
That like overly, you know what I mean? It's like just like I'm just a sinner. I am just garbage. I'm just like, but He is the Lord, and He's everything was like this. It was a testimony, but it was like God wasn't powerful at all.
Yep.
You know, it's like this constant state of just like I'm weeping, I'm broken, which is there's a place for that.
Yeah.
There's value for
But
that.
when you gonna put the pieces back together?
Right. And I was
Yeah.
just talking about this the other night about this, rap. He's not a Christian rapper, but a rapper who calls him a Christian. And everything he raps about is negative. Like since he started, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like when you have 7 years of music where you're still in this cage, it's like, bro, what is the point?
Yeah.
Where is freedom?
And,
And
yes.
Yeah.
And why, if I'm listening to this or I'm listening
Right.
to you, why would I choose to serve a God that you still in the same place 7 years later?
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. Something
Yeah.
is wrong with that.
Right.
And I'm not saying we don't gotta be perfected, but we gotta be progressing. Like I don't want you were here and then
Right.
7 years later you still there. Well, why do I need to serve your God? It's a
Right.
bad representation of who God is.
Yeah.
Because God, He's a deliverer. So I came in this like this, but I'm not leaving out of this the same way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I agree. There is like this level of presenting. Like I always say, like, man, God chose me when I was raggedy. Like He didn't care. Like I'm raggedy today. I'm gonna be raggedy tomorrow. He still chose me.
Right.
But in Him choosing me, I want to be a little less raggedy tomorrow.
Right, right.
Like
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to be in the same place. We are all like, none of us will ever be perfect. We are like yet getting there, but
Right.
there should be some progress in your situation, in your
Right.
story. Like we got to go from one chapter to the next.
Right.
Like, and if you're still struggling with this, there's a lack of a decision and there's a lack of
Yeah.
surrender. And that's why there isn't a change. You're not going
Right.
to blame it on, and I don't like that because
Right.
it does also present this, you can serve Jesus and live however you want to. And that ain't how this rolls. Like, yes, He accepted you, but out of my love for Him, I want to be better. I want to
Right.
do better. I want to learn better. I want to grow and not just stay in the same place. Then
Right.
someone who's following somebody else, why would I come over? If
Right.
your life is in the same place, for what?
Right.
It's
And
okay. Oh,
Go ahead.
Go.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I do think we have to do better at that. Like, me being vulnerable is not providing you or myself with an excuse to be in this place.
Right.
It's saying like, hey, this is a journey. We're all growing. No one's perfect, but here are the steps that I'm
Right.
taking to make sure that the next time we
Yeah.
talk about this, I'm not in the same place.
Right.
Right, including I'm on a journey to get somewhere.
Yes.
I'm
Right.
not just here.
Right. You're
Right.
going somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere. I've
Yeah.
heard it said like it's normal, natural, and definitely okay and expected to struggle year after year. But we shouldn't be struggling with the same thing.
Nope.
Right? If we're struggling, I also heard this, maybe not exactly about struggle, but don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life.
No,
It's like
for real.
every year we should be growing,
Right.
progressing, and we can have struggles, and that it should be expected. We shouldn't ever expect to be living an Instagram curated life,
Right.
Our whole life, and everything is just the good stuff.
Right.
But our struggles should be changing over time.
Yep.
Because if our struggles are changing, it means we're changing. I mean,
Yep.
we're growing, right? And as we grow, our problems are going to be different.
Right.
But that's so true. Is that?
And at the same time, there's this desire for Zion in us. You know what I mean? Like this desire for Eden.
Yep.
And so it is a hard balance when you see these things. I believe every person has that fundamental desire. It's like things aren't the way they should be.
Yes.
Inside of me. And so naturally perfectionism, it's like you're looking at some form of Zion. It might be a shadow of it, but it's some form of I could possibly get there. I remember even, growing up in the kind of really charismatic sphere of Christian churches. I wouldn't call it evangelicalism necessarily. It was really charismatic, but there was this view of like, everything in you is already gone, like every problem is already gone. And it was like, at first, like life to me, it was like, you mean I could be perfectly free right now, you know? And it was like, it was this journey and it had good things in it, but then I started living this way to gain this sort of perfection. And when I wasn't there, I was very hard on myself. I'm like, what am I not believing right? What am I not doing right? And that's what you see often in the social media is like, just love yourself. It's like, am I not loving myself enough? Because your boy's still struggling. This girl's having a great life. You know what I mean? Or this guy's having a great life. How do I actually do what you're doing? Because everything, but that process, I think that's so important what you said. It's like that, not perfection, but process, you know, and being able to see that, because that's really where life is in that process. You're always in that space.
And I think like, I think a couple things. I think like
that's good.
a couple things. But I think like the reason, because I want to touch on the part of like everything in you is like good and everything's gone. And there is a reason that Jesus came as a man. It is to show us that the life that he lived is attainable.
It's attainable.
It is attainable. He was fully man. So there's a reason for that, right? There is a reason for it, that is something that we can attain. But when we get to a place of striving for what he's already given us is where we mess up. Because it's like, oh, okay, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. And if we pay attention to the life Jesus lived, he just was. Like, God created us to be human beings, not human doings. But we all like, what do I got to do? What do I got to do to like be like that? And he's like, just be. And all of it, our journeys, our struggles, the things that we are like, the things that are in our hearts are all God's way of bringing us to him. It's all about relationship. So even when I'm struggling, it's like, okay, I got to get to him. He's like, all right, I'm gonna use this. Hope you end up here. All right, I'm gonna use this and I hope you end up here. It's like, I'm trying to get you to me. It's all about relationship. And when we make it about rules or reasons or like why, like the how to, he's like, hey, just be with me. Jesus was successful because he just walked with the Lord. And he's like, okay. Like, even when he has a moment and he's like, hey, I don't want to do this. And he's crying. He's like, but I want to do what's pleasing to you. But that comes from relationship. And so I think when we get to the place of like, I could never be enough, so I'm not even going to try. But like, what is the process to getting me to where you want me to be? Not based off how I seen this person, like not how Daryl does it, not how Aaron does it, but for Brenda. God, like, how do I get to be the best Brenda that you created me to be so that I can walk out what you've called me to do on this earth? And when we make it about that, we'll be okay with being vulnerable about our struggles. We'll be okay with not being how you got it, but how I am. Because it's like, my progress is like, I'm building relationshiip so that I can be more like Christ every day.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
And then with that growth, closing the distance between who you are and what is presented. Because ultimately that needs to be closed off as well. And I think that will make even you more aware of what you're sharing. Being too vulnerable or not vulnerable enough, perfectionistic. I think awareness is super important.
Absolutely.
For that, you know, and when you're on that journey with God, you know what I mean? There's this mentality in you to seek first the kingdom and open yourself up to the fullness of healing. You can better convey that to people.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, because that's what it is. Like, that's how I always look at it. It's like, this is just like my journey, like with God. And I'm choosing to invite you on it to hope that it pushes you to start your own journey or continue on your own journey. And that's kind of how I look at it every day. So the highs, the lows is like, this is my relationship with God. And I hope by seeing it, you don't want to be like me, but you want to get to know him. So that you can have your own relationship with him and it can produce fruit the way it's supposed to in your life. And so I think if it's presented like that, which is tough because we live in a fallen world and we do a good job of making idols out of everything. And anything that looks a little bit better than what I got is like, ooh, I want that, or I want it to look like that kind of thing. And so I think as long as you're in the right place, you can't control how people perceive you or receive you, but you can control how you push them to you. You know what I'm saying? So when it starts to focus on you, like, no, that's not what this is about kind of thing. And being able to shift that and it keeps your motives and your heart pure.
And not switching the pendulum either of this is evil, this is good. You know, because otherwise you get in this like weird dichotomy when you do start doing that, you know, because at some point I'm gonna make this podcast about me. You know, like I already have sometimes, you know what I mean? Or at some point it's going to happen. That doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? It's like there's still good content in it, no matter even if sometimes my motive isn't right.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's important to know too, is like what I'm promoting to other people, even if sometimes it's inauthentic.
Yeah.
You know, I can go back and say, well, I was trying to be as authentic as I was. I didn't do the best job, but it was still good in it.
Yeah.
And then even sometimes your inauthenticity will impact somebody.
No,
like God can
absolutely.
use
Yes.
all of that stuff
It's
so to
Moses.
remain in the middle.
It's Moses in the rock. It's like God told him to speak to it. He struck it, but water still poured out of it.
Yeah.
Which means
Right.
like God's purpose still prevailed in spite of his disobedience.
Right.
And so that is true. Like God can still move in whatever you do because his purpose is the goal. So even if I mess up a little bit and be like,
Right.
this is about me, it's like somebody's life can be changed and I can still get you together, Brenda. Get your life together. Get it
Right.
straight. That is
Yeah,
not
yeah.
that's not what we're doing. And so
Jeez.
I always think of it like that because I can be really hard on myself. If I make a mistake and I'm like, you know, like this cost a lot. And he's like, no, it's water from the rock. Even though
Right.
I told Moses to speak to the rock, he struck it. I still showed up.
Right.
People
Water from the rock.
received water from the rock, even though he was disobedient. And there were consequences to his disobedience.
The boy didn't get to
He
go
didn't
into the
get to
promised
go
land.
into the promised land. I just was like, well, I should have just used my mouth. I should have just used my mouth. And so, like, but people were
There were some dire consequences
dire.
from
They
that.
were dire. Okay?
There were some big-
There were some huge consequences. He
This
had to-
boy had
not
been
only did
leading
he
them-
not get to go, he had to watch them
Well-
walk in.
He's like, go up in the mountain. I want you to
I want
see
you
the
to
land
see
that you're not
everybody
going
get
into.
what you were going to get, but you're not going
Thank
to
you,
get
Lord,
now.
for Jesus,
Oh my
because
gosh.
the Lord was rough. He said, you can't go and watch him go in. Actually, just take me right now. I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch.
But
Well,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
good. The Lord can still bring water from the rock,
Yeah.
Right.
regardless of what we end up putting out there,
Yeah.
the reason we put it out there.
Yeah.
But I think that what you're saying is like our relationship with God, whenever that is the main thing, and we make that the most important expression, you know, that what we express, what we create, the content that comes out, if we really are working on a relationship with Jesus and asking God, how do I be the person that you are calling me to be? Now, I don't want to be like that person, don't need to be like that person, but how do I be the best me that you've called me to be? You know, how do I look more like you, really? Even in the process of putting out the content, making posts, whether or not we're authentic, whether or not we're truly vulnerable in a healthy way, that God can still bring water from the rock.
Absolutely.
And to not let that make us beat ourselves up because we realize, oh, that was for the wrong reason or whatever.
Right.
Even if that happened, hey, that's okay. God can bring water from the rock. I think being on that journey, being on the growth, the progress is a main point.
Yeah, it's huge. I do want to talk about our ability to handle each other and the way that social media
Cancel culture.
Oh my
man. And because
conflict.
as much as we want to show process, the majority of people don't like it. We love to destroy people.
We do.
And
well, we'd love to destroy people that are not like us.
Yep.
We love to
Right.
support
People
our
who
people that
agree
we
with
say are
us.
our
Yep.
people, you know?
right.
Yeah.
But I mean, because it's so heightened, because it's like because it's these highlights, right?
Yep.
Even these moments, these clips of what people say, these sound bites of what people have said. It's so easy to take someone's entire identity,
Yep.
personality, and say this is who you are, and then cancel them, crush them.
Yep.
You know, just demolish them. And you see it on, I mean, political spheres. Like, oh my God, I'm not trying to get into that.
I know, but I've had to block a couple people.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, y'all gotta be crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's the access. And we
Right.
like what I love about social media, right? Is you choose who you follow.
Right,
You
right.
don't just like pop up on my page and if there's some stuff that you're posting that maybe I don't agree with or maybe I don't like, I have the authority to unfollow you.
Right,
like,
yeah,
you know what
right.
I'm saying? And I think if people did that, I think social media has given people audacity. Just like I can say whatever I want to say. If I don't
Yes.
agree with what you say or
Right.
do, I can hop in your comments. I can say it gives people access. Whereas like if you saw me on the street, you wouldn't do that. If I said something and you walked up to me, you probably just walked past me. You wouldn't confront
Right.
me. You wouldn't be like, I didn't like that. You know,
Right.
it's unrealistic. It wouldn't happen.
I heard your new song, Brenda. Yeah. It
It's
was
like,
garbage.
It was garbage. It's
Yeah.
like you wouldn't do that. And
Were
so
you on helium when you say it's like what people are vicious.
No,
Yeah,
they are. But
They
I
are.
think also like something I live by in space, period, is like nobody would hurt you from a place of wholeness. It's their own brokenness. And typically when somebody's at you on social media, whether it's about how you look or like what you think or what you believe, it's usually an insecurity that's been heightened in them that they're now trying to deflect. Like, and so I think as believers on social media, we have a responsibility. Like even now for me, I've had things that I wanted to share in my story, and I'm like, Brenda, you can't do that.
Right.
You know, you can't. And I wouldn't have to say anything. Whatever I post would say enough for me. You know what I'm saying? And so I have been, especially like over the last year or so, been very intentional. Like if I'm sharing something and it's a viewpoint that people may not agree with, I want it to be educational and not offensive.
Right.
And so I'm learning how to like, okay, maybe I can't post this, but I do want to speak into this. I want to offer another perspective, but how can I do that where it's respectful to people? And I think like, that is the thing. But I have recently had to block people because I'm like, you are really sliding in my DMs telling me what you don't like about something I posted, and you could just not watch it, you know, or not look at it. Or you can share your thoughts and views in a respectful manner, but not like you can control what's coming out of here, because you can't do that. And I think the whole cancel culture thing, I think it's wrong. I feel bad for people, people who like make a wrong remark or one thing, and it can ruin their career.
Right.
Like it's like, dang, there's no room to mess up in this world today. And I feel like brands, people, celebrities, like anybody with influence, I also think sometimes for church, it's diluting the truth from messages, because nobody wants to be a soundbite. Nobody wants to get canceled. So where I should be speaking truth from the word of God, I can't do that because I don't want to end up on the gram, or I don't want to end up canceled. And so I do feel like we're going to reach a place where there's going to be a separation, where people are like, I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to say what God tells me to say. And I think that's a tough space to live in, but we are not supposed to, if the culture loves us, I don't know if we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing. Right. Because the culture is oftentimes counter the word. Right. And so we're going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to like ride this little line of like nothing. Like just don't say nothing. Just like, ooh, like we think things, we have our own conversations about it, but I think we're going to come to a point where God's going to say right and wrong. Right. And you got to speak up for it. And so, yeah,
Jesus is like, the world's going to hate you. They hated me. And then we're like seeker friendly, you know, real seeker friendly.
We're like, but Lord, they don't have to hate us now.
The
world's progressed. It's No. Yeah. And it is crazy
in a culture that I think would probably value inclusivity and acceptance the most, the cancel culture, right? So it's like the idea is like, we've got to be inclusive, but it's my kind of inclusive.
What I think.
Totally.
What I think is inclusive. And so if you say things still, it's exclusive, you know, like, so no matter what we do to be like, everybody's just one. You know, like it's like maybe in a spiritual sense, like things in heaven and earth have been united. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
but not in real life.
But like that just doesn't work. And when you're trying to make uniformity, right? I guess rather than unity, right? Of like that kind of one mind,
right?
You're going to run into problems because people aren't going to think like you. And I think what it is too is the way that algorithms even work on social media totally allow for you to get caught in your own social bubble.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So it's made up of the videos I watch. Create more videos that are just like that video I watched. Right? And so I get caught in my own thought stream.
That everything is the same way that I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we think that everybody thinks the way I think, and when we see somebody think differently, we think that person's wrong.
Or is an oddity.
Or is
what? Is an oddity or
is an oddity.
Or a minority,
because it's like it's out of what I think, right? And so like that, nobody believes what you just said.
And you're wrong.
And you're
it's
wrong.
Offensive.
Totally.
I'm like, it's offensive that I don't think the same way as you. I don't know where that, which is weird, because we all come from different places. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different experiences, which shape our beliefs.
Right.
And so it's like, we come from two different worlds. How could you think that we would always agree on this? And I do think that, I think like, for people who feel like we should accept everybody, I feel the same way that you should accept me when I don't agree. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I just like you have the right to, I have the right to as well.
Right.
And so it's like, where do we get to this place that I only got the right to do what you think I should do? And when I don't do that, now I'm like, I'm wrong. Or I'm like the worst person in the world. Or I hate, like hate gets attached to that.
Right.
And it's like, or maybe I just have a difference of opinion. And like, we're different people and it's okay. It doesn't mean I love you any less. And so, yeah, it's a little tough.
It's so crazy to me that in a world where we have so much access to different perspectives, we are so closed off to different perspectives. It's like we could, if we wanted to, really try to understand different worldviews.
Yep.
We can actually do so much to try to understand someone else's perspective, to see the way someone else sees the world, to hear about somebody else's experience, to try to figure out, well, why do they see this different to me?
Yep.
But instead of utilizing that, we close off everything different.
We don't want to hear anything counter.
We isolate our own ideologies, like this is everything that we need to know. This is the only thing that matters. And I don't care to hear about anything else. And if you say anything else, I'm going to stop listening to you. I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to block you. I'm going to da-da-da. And we don't listen to the rest of the world. And there's like 8 billion people on the earth. No one's going to have the same perspective.
No.
But we keep finding the people that think just like us, or so we think. We feel like they think just like us. And even in a moment where we think people think just like us, they do one thing that's big enough to be not like us, and now we push them out.
Yep. I was just saying,
Like right
just
now, I
crazy.
could just mute you if I didn't like what you just said.
right.
Which
Or
is
cut it out.
It cut it out. I could cut it out, and that's the thing with
That's
social
what people
media.
are doing.
That's what, it's just like I don't like that, and whatever you just said right now about inclusivity of these other people too. It's just like I could mute you, and it would just be Brenda and I talking the entire podcast.
What that happened it happened kind of in real life. I remember being at the car wash, and where I used to live was like right across the street from like a Scientology school, and they were like recruiting at the car wash. So they send like people who are like in lower ranking, and they're like, hey, like, would you be interested in like coming for this like orientation for Scientology? And I'm like, no, I absolutely would not like to do that. I wouldn't. And so it was like I was like sitting in a chair, and there was like these other 2 people that were sitting down from the chair. So because he came to talk to me, I wanted, like you said, I wanted to hear, like, so I'm like, how did you like get involved in this? And like, what is this? And so then I'm like, I follow Jesus, so how does that fit into Scientology? He's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like we have people who are like Buddhists, we have Christians, we have all kind of, I said, so is it a religion? He's like, it's like this. He starts like trying to explain it to me, and I'm like, boy, this don't sound like you know what you're talking about.
Right.
And I don't think they're used to people usually people are just like, no. I'm like, no, I want to know. I want to know.
Right.
I want to know right now, though, because I'm not going in that room. You hypnotize me or something.
right.
How did I get here kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so
I'm not trying to find out later.
Yeah, I want to know
Yeah.
now, like right here outside at the car wash. And so like we started talking. Basically, his family grew up in it, and then that's like how he ended up in it, and he didn't know anything outside of that. And so I'm just like having this dialogue, and so then there were ladies that were listening who were believers, and they like come and start going in on him. They're like, you're lying. What you're telling her is not the truth. Like this and this happens and all of this. And so then I'm sitting there like, oh my God. And so then she was like, and if you don't know, you need to go tell them to tell you the truth, like kind of thing. And just kind of like shut it down. And so I'm always like, I want to have a conversation. Like Jesus was a conversationalist. He sat at tables with everybody. Because how do we ever infiltrate something we don't understand? And I can't just tell you you're wrong, I'm right.
Right.
And I want to hear like how you got here. What in your experience shaped you to believe that this was good for you? And have you? And what I was trying to point out was that in joining this or becoming a part of this, you haven't grown in any area. He was just like, we have like the highest IQs, and I was like, and then what is that doing for your life? Like how were you this way and now you're this way as a result of this? Like, but we need to have conversations. And so I'm sharing this to say, like, I absolutely cared about how he thought and how he felt. And I wasn't there to convert him. I'm just trying to have a conversation.
Right.
And I think we as believers could be a lot more effective if we were willing to have conversations with people across the table who don't think the same way as us. And I also think it fortifies our faith. When I can have a conversation with you and still walk away from it and be strong in the fact that I believe what I believe and not like, that sounded kind of, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think a lot of us don't know why we believe what we believe. We just believe it because it was like what my mom and dad did, or it's like the only thing I've ever known. And so if I can't stand in this conversation and still walk away and be like, yeah, my faith is still strong. It wasn't tested by this conversation.
Right.
It actually grew a little bit more. And I think we can't be afraid of that, especially now, because everything is spiritual. We've stepped into a space that's like spirituality and manifestation. They're using our terminology and taking God out of it. And so if we don't start having conversations, we're going to be like a lost religion, because we're lacking power, we lacking authenticity, we're lacking a lot of things in our faith, and the world is taking Satan is taking what God is and who he is and perverting it and calling it something else. And we're losing people to the faith who identify as believers. And so if we don't start having conversations, if we don't start trying to understand thought processes by how people are being deceived, we're gonna lose a lot of battles.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree with that so much, is that a lot of people don't know why they believe what they believe. I think if you actually when you entertain that conversation, it's like, what led you there? And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
How did I even, a lot of people haven't gotten to that point. It's like, I know what I know because I know it, and that's about as far as the belief pattern goes, and not to use like a buzzword right now, but like to actually deconstruct a little bit, right? Of that, like, where does this come from, and how did this get put in me? And we've talked about it a lot before, that if you're seeking truth, you're gonna find it.
Yep, absolutely.
And so if you're genuinely going after it, you shouldn't be afraid to entertain a conversation and discover a lie or discover truth. Because we should be looking for that,
Absolutely.
So if you're having a conversation and you're afraid of like you shutting it down because you don't want lies spread, it's like, well, truth's going to win out,
Absolutely.
so yeah, go ahead.
There's talk about the brain. The part of our brain is releases dopamine when we defend what we believe about people and about things. And so there's this, I think there's part of it, like this biological aspect, that we want to feel good, and so we defend what we say we believe, and we don't entertain the possibility of changing anything about that belief, right? And so we're not open to hearing somebody else's perspective because we just want to say what we think because it feels good to do that. I also think that sometimes we don't engage in the conversation because we are insecure. We don't know if we don't know why we believe what we believe, right? And we're kind of afraid to open up that question.
Challenge it.
Yeah, we're afraid to that be questioned. So somebody questions it and we just shoot back instead of actually thinking about that question. Like, well, I don't know. Let me think about that for a sec.
Because what we believe makes up who we are in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it's like,
you start tearing that down, it's like, well, who am I?
Right.
Yeah.
Who am I without it? It happened during the pandemic. I believe the church didn't know who they were without Sunday services.
Right.
It's like, we can't go to the building. We can't.
Well, now what do we
Well,
do?
who are we? Like, what do we do with that?
Right.
And so I do think, I honestly believe that, but I think it's not until you tear it down that it can be built up, and then without all of the things, like, it's rooted in this thing.
Right.
And I understand what you're saying, but could I challenge you with this?
Right.
Because this has been my experience, and even if it causes that person to just go, I think that I've done enough. You know, I've done enough. And I think that is one of the benefits of social media. For me, I think social media is a mission field. It feels like a place where there are people who are not believers. And if my video so happen to catch the algorithm and it ends up on the discovered page, you know how many people are tapping that and getting a little dose of like, that's like, well, who is Jesus? And like, how do I get to know him? And I think like, it's interesting because social media and media period, people know what they know based off what they've seen in media. Like I was just asking my friend the other day, I was like, how did people know that they should, or that it was an idea that I could take sage and light it and put it in my house to get rid of bad mojo or like bad vibes.
Right.
Where do we get that from? We saw it happen on television. We saw someone do that. We saw and it was like, oh, now it becomes a practice. And there are people who are doing that and they don't have any idea what they're actually doing. And so it's like Satan is the prince of the airwaves. He has the ability to influence what he wants to do and never have to bother a believer. He never has to do anything for us because he has access to these ways. if we are not also there, how do we counter it? How do people meet Jesus? And so I know like a lot of people will be like, I don't do social media. Like, that is Satan. When I moved to LA, they're like, that Satan lives there. I was like, knock it off. Like, it's like, but they will. Like, you'll go to California, you'll move to LA, and you'll lose yourself. Well, I don't know if myself was really found if that happens. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
But it's
yeah.
like, we cannot be afraid to infiltrate places. Like, it's literally our job. God told us to go into all the world. That's like, go into all of the spaces and establish the kingdom of God there, which means what he wants it to be. That's politics, that's entertainment, that's education, that's the world. It's our job to do that, and that includes social media.
Right.
And so I think like we there is a responsibility, and there is a releasing that thing that you don't think is going to get any likes. That one person that likes it, that's who it was for. And be okay with that. Like, be okay with it only touching the one, because maybe the one that you touch is connected to thousands, and maybe your step of obedience impacting that person is now influenced a nation or a generation, and be okay with that. But I do think there's a responsibility that we have, like, as social media being a mission field.
Yeah, that's good. I was part of this men's study. We just started going through Acts, and at the beginning, we watched these videos just on the story of Acts. But the Apostle Paul, obviously a big part of what happened in the early church, and he used all the ways that he could to reach people.
Yep.
Right? He was
Letters.
writing letters. He was on the ship, going to where he needed to go. He used all of the Roman roads, which like the best paid roads, to get access. All the cities were connected. Everywhere led to Rome. Every road that Rome was connected to. I mean, every city that was under Rome's authority had a road leading to Rome, right? And he used all those avenues of networking and connecting. And if he was alive today, he would probably be on social media.
Listen, Jesus would be
Apostle Paul.
Jesus would be a
Apostle Paul.
filmmaker.
At Apostle Paul.
Jesus would be a filmmaker. He had all the parables. He would absolutely be like killing it in Hollywood. Like, and I do think that. I think like we make things so like, no, that's Satan. No, we need to be there. Like, because if let's just say that is Satan, who's defending for the people? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
who's showing up? And so I think if we see it that way, and not as like this horrible place that it can be. Anything can be that. Anything with people can become a horrible place. Like, because we are broken and it's a fallen world. But like, how do I infiltrate this space and make it not that? Like, how can I add some positivity to someone's day who feels trash about their life because they've been scrolling on Instagram? You know, maybe they scroll across my video and it makes them smile. You know, kind of thing. And so I think if we see it that way and stop trying to like be like this person or present this way or curate this, like just be authentic. Like, whatever, however you feel, post it. Like, I posted myself tripping and falling, and somebody reposted it, and I was like, wow, guys, wow.
You posted.
What about that thing I said yesterday morning?
And somebody was like, I can't believe you posted that. I'm like, why not? It happened in real life. Like, it was a video, and like not taking yourself too seriously, and knowing that like people can be influenced by anything. They just want to like, we just want people to be real.
I think everything of me on social media is something stupid. I don't think I have one serious thing on there, to be honest. But it's interesting talking about like the spiritual life being cultivated by even social media. You know, like I came across witch talk.
Wow.
Yeah, TikTok for witches. You know,
oh, there's a whole platform.
There's a whole no, it's called TikTok, but it's like a page on TikTok.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how that works.
Okay,
it's like I guess a hashtag or something like that. But there's just streams of videos seeking spirituality through doing witchcraft, you know?
Wow.
And it's like, you know, more like positivity, self-help witchcraft, which is like really big. Actually, it's like it's a big page. Like I was like scrolling, I was like, my goodness. Like, and so it's like that kind of stuff, you know. How'd you learn how to do like, you know, sage and there's these different spells for well-being and casting out evil spirits, but there's a development for us, and especially for young kids growing up, you have access to all of these things, which in a way is good to see, like you said, other perspectives, but then like you have avenues to learn about
a filter.
Totally.
Avenues to learn about stuff you should not be learning about.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like what? Like, you know what I mean? And I think there's that movement with a lot of maybe even like, am I going to go here? But like, you know, sexuality stuff, you know, that's like these kids are learning that. It's like, okay, I get it, but these are kids, like, and they're on TikTok looking at this stuff that's like
for hours,
hours on like on finding your own.
I read something up to 7 hours.
It's crazy.
No,
up to 7 hours a day. teenagers can be on their phones looking at, like, doing whatever's on the screen, movies, TV shows. It's social media. I know a lot of it is social media.
And it's 81 to 89% of teens.
Yeah, are on social media. And the number of individual, like, teenagers from 13 to 16, I think, doubled that had cell phones, like just smartphones. From 2015 to 2018, the percentage doubled. And I can't imagine what it's like now, even just because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
Because of COVID, so many more people went online, got phones, and whatever. It's just,
that was a 2018 study. Was 81% of teens.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just going to be up.
That's 4 years ago
for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy, but it makes sense because it's like, I'm telling you, that's why we need to be in those spaces.
Right.
Yeah,
because if not, then what?
Right.
Because that's where everybody is.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's where everybody is.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that it's particular people that are more called to that space? Because there's people that are just like, I'm just not into it, and this is my sphere of influence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think some people are really hyped on it. I wouldn't think that you think everybody needs to be on it or something like that.
I don't think everybody needs to be on there, but I do think the body of Christ. Like, I think it's not a space that we can neglect. We just learned that.
It's at least a toe in the body of Christ.
I think it's like a foot and some legs.
And some legs.
And maybe like the bottom half of you need to be there. And I'm only saying that because, like, think about 2020. We could not physically go in our church. There are so many churches that closed because they did not have online church. They didn't have streaming. Like, Jesus went where the people were. So eventually, like, no, everybody isn't called there. But, like, maybe you need to have a digital pastor on your team because we need to be in those spaces. It's not going to, like, die off. It's not going to die down. It's only going to keep increasing. They're creating metaverses, like actual when you put on glasses and the kids are in the space. I know a church that's working on creating a church in the metaverse. I'm not saying we got to do all of that, but what happens when people stop coming? So then do we just be like, all right, Lord, I was called to the inside of the church, so I guess it's a wrap for me.
I'll tell you what, I'm checking out. I'm checking out as soon as a meta church comes online. I'm sorry. I will maybe visit because it's kind of cool, and then I will continue to meet people in the real world. Yeah, you have to. Like, I remember watching like someone was like kind of giving like a prophetic word about like the future and like business space and tech space, and was saying like, if you're listening to this right now, like, you need to go create a hospital for us that literally, because virtual reality and like artificial intelligence is going to be so prevalent in our space, we are not going to understand what's real and what's not. Like, the worlds are going to eventually cross over. And she's like, if the Lord is touching your heart right now, you need to go design it. Like, where we can go and like turn off the world and be able to like sit in this space, because it's going to be so much crossover. So I feel like as the church, not that we need to stay, like, we need to conform, right? And start bringing the world into the church. But how do we continue to evolve where we can continue to deliver the message of Jesus in different spaces? Because it's going to keep evolving. And in a minute, people are going to be like, show up to church. Let me put on my little Oculus glasses and I'm at church. And it's like, oh, snap. Like, what do we do? Like, how do, and it's, I hope that doesn't happen.
It feels so crazy, but it feels like it could be so real in the next 5 years.
Because it's already happening to some degree. There are people for sure that instead of showing up, they decide to watch online.
And then it's going to get, it's because we want more. We want more. So now, like, even we'll go back to television, you know, right? Like, it's like tweeting. So I can tweet with my people. Now I'm going to want to be in the show. And they're going to figure out a way for you to be at home and enter the show. I'm telling you, like, technology is only going to keep growing. And it's so it can pull you more into it and less away from connection. So either we have to value connection so much that we make people feel like they have to have it in person, or we are going to lose people.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think there's ever going to be a replacement for person-to-person connection.
No, at all.
I don't think it can be. But I think that the world is leaning away from person-to-person connection.
Yeah.
because of all the social, the pseudo connections that we get through social connections online. And it feels like we're being connected, like we talked about earlier, like kind of the community of projections where we can kind of be accepted and not really have to risk a lot, you know, but we know we're not really actually being accepted. But at the same time, we feel like we know people because we have access
so
to their life. No, I'm
Right.
connected. I know what's going on in her life and his
Until
life.
you get in person and you don't know what to say
Right.
or do.
Right.
Yes.
Because we have no social skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because those don't translate.
No, they do not translate.
They don't translate.
And so then you like been talking to this person for 6 months and you get in person and you're like,
Hey.
or texting while you're
Right.
sitting next to each other. You don't have social skills.
Right.
And so I do agree with that, but it's like, how do we keep communicating the value of in person?
Right.
Especially when
Yeah.
there's also a fear of, do you have COVID? Because that's still here. I know people act like it's not, but whenever someone coughs or sneezes, you still see heads
Yeah.
go. It don't matter where you are.
Right.
It's like, you all right? And so like, that's now a thing too. So now we have to get over like fear of people or being around people. It's almost like starting over for how to like engage in person. It's like, we hugging or we not? We dapping or we elbowing? It's like, what are we doing?
I've seen kids they don't even wear masks for COVID. They wear it so that they can stay away from people, so that they're not seen. Like it's a way
Wow. to hide.
right? So it's like I'm still at home basically when I put on my mask. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not really presented in front of anybody. So like if I got my mask on, less people are gonna engage with me. So it's like there's kids like that. You know what I mean? It's a safety mechanism for that. They don't want to be seen. They want to be covered.
Man.
And that's how much that social dynamic is because at this point in my life, like I walk in a room like what's up, you know, like there's this connection. I don't have trouble with that, but we've really become really closed off, you know. And I think a big thing of is like 80% of what I say comes from how I'm my body language, right? So I think we've done an episode on it. I want to say it's like 10, maybe 20% max of what you're speaking matters, right?
Right, the actual words.
The actual
facial
words,
expressions,
how you say it,
how you
tonality.
say it, you know. And it is, some of it is like you don't recognize it, because I didn't realize how much anxiety I had until I went to the airport to fly, and I was like, oh my god, I don't want to get COVID. All these people, oh my god,
right?
that person doesn't have on a mask. Oh my god, they're breathing. Then I had a middle seat. I almost lost my entire mind. I was literally like,
not breathing.
like, I don't want to touch nothing. Like, and I flew a lot during COVID. Like, I flew a lot, but it wasn't until everybody else started flying. Like, it's like that first time the airport was back open, I was like, oh my god.
Right.
You mean that all these planes leaving from the same gate? Like, I literally stood in the hallway.
Over.
I stood in the hallway. I was like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Oh,
and so
wow.
like now I'm like being intentional about like, Laura, it's cool. Like whatever. I survived COVID twice. I'll survive it again.
I got it
like,
twice
it'll
too.
be cool. And so like, but it is that it's like we don't even recognize. And I'm like, man, imagine like how the enemy comes in and like uses a thing, and now the world's flipped upside down.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
And
crazy.
on that, people feeling separated, and even the intentionality to create distance, you know, by putting a mask on, so that way people don't interact. There was, with COVID, there was a huge rise in experiences of loneliness, disconnection, depression, attempted suicide. And there's been studies correlating the rise in social media with the rise of depression as well. You know, rise of depression, people feeling lonely, people feeling not seen, people contemplating suicide happening at younger ages now as well, because of this, what seems to be this created experience of feeling connected but not really.
Yeah, that's true.
And that in-person experience, I feel like is still part of our human need to connect with other people.
We were made like, it's like we were made for it. Cause it's like after COVID, like I hadn't been home for almost like a year and a half, and I finally saw my parents, and it was like we cried, even though we were FaceTiming every day. It was just like, it's been way too long. And so I agree with that. Like, I don't think anything will ever replace it, but I think they're going to stimulate us so much that we're not going to recognize the need for it.
Right.
Because they're feeding it with other things, so we're distracted from how much we need that. And so it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But utilizing, I still love what you're talking about with infiltrating the space of social media as the kingdom. as the body of Christ, because that's needed, right? Because
Absolutely.
if people are feeling lonely and depressed, especially in that space,
Yes,
you know, it's
especially
like
in that
how can
space.
we turn our back to that and say no, let them go do their thing and wallow in depression if that's what's going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
But if we can actually do something about it,
We gotta be there.
we got to be there.
In the space, but not a slave of it.
Ooh.
I think
Right.
that's
In the space, not a
that
slave.
might be the episode title.
Wow.
In the space, but not a
In
slave.
the space,
Yeah,
but not a slave.
Yeah.
Bars.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing is to affect social media,
Yep.
and then you're naturally going to be affected in some way by
Yeah.
social media.
It's built. It's
To affect
built
you,
to
yeah.
affect
It
you
is.
to make you addicted.
Yep.
That's what it
Right.
is there for you to become addicted to it.
But
know,
you
'cause,
can
like,
create patterns in your life
Yeah, you gotta
to
create.
overcome it.
You have
Absolutely.
I think I always come back to self-awareness. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Just like aware of when I have to come back into my own body and realize I'm scrolling and I don't even want to right now.
Because
Yeah.
I'll sometimes be doing this, like watching TV, doing this, watching TV, doing this. It's
Right.
like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
it's just clearly this is not a natural act for you. You're just doing this, and so I do like sometimes it's like, okay, I'm gonna post this video, then I'm not gonna be on it
Right.
for the rest of the day, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finding ways, being self-aware is the key.
Yeah.
Like, how is this affecting me? If I'm recognizing like I'm feeling away and I don't know where it came from, it's probably because you've seen something on social media. Like, knock it off, take a break,
Right.
take a breather. Like, and I love that, not being a slave to it. Because being a slave to it means every time I get the urge, I gotta go.
Right.
No, let me go find something else to do. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, do something else. So then I am like, I'm submitting it to what it's supposed to be and
Right.
not letting
Right.
it control me.
Yeah, because it can be used as a helpful tool and even to bring enjoyment, you know, in life.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there's like accounts that I follow
There's so
that
much
give me
funny
like
stuff.
funny
practical
bro.
advice for like relationship stuff that I follow. Like, that's good. I'm gonna try to implement that in my marriage, you know. But if
Look at
I
you.
become addicted, if I become addicted to it and I'm just going to it instead of being with my wife,
It's now taken
you know,
away from your wife.
that's not gonna
Wow.
add to
Yeah.
my relationship with my wife.
Exactly.
It's
You
now a distraction.
You have no idea how many videos I watch, babe, about
Right. It's like, man, you should really see this video. And she's like, hey, can we just talk?
Right.
It's
Uh-huh.
like,
right.
it is true though. Because
Yeah.
it's like, and that is being self-aware. Like, how is this affecting me? Is it growing me or is it distracting me? Because we are good for a good distraction. We like don't want to do work. It's like, man, I never have time to do. But how many hours did you spend on Instagram today?
Right.
It's like, oh, I didn't have time to write that book. It's like, but how many? I see 8 hours of time that
Right.
could have been used to write
Uh-huh.
that book. And so I think whenever I get that little
Yeah.
thing that says you spent this much, I'm always convicted.
Yeah.
I'm like,
we just looked it up. The average person spends 59 minutes
On, like, Facebook or Instagram.
I think it was just Facebook alone.
Yeah, but then Instagram was like 50 something minutes too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just on Instagram,
Right.
right? Not like TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and
on Instagram.
Pinterest or whatever.
For
I've
teens, it's like
fallen.
3 hours.
I
Like,
fall in that
right.
number.
right.
I'm just like,
Yeah. I
watching
get-
people's stories is where I get stuck.
Mhm.
And then I end up in a dark hole. There's literally,
Yes.
it's like watching a story, someone posts something, then I gotta click that, and then I end up on their page, and
Yeah.
then I'm like, I'm always embarrassed when I have to keep hitting the back button. I'm like,
Yeah,
this
wait,
was a
how
dark
many times?
hole. A dark hole. All from one person's story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, but what happened? And who's this person? And wow, I didn't know them. Oh, look at that jacket.
Yeah.
Where did I buy that jacket from? Like,
Yeah.
it is literally a dark hole. And then I'm like, hey, come out.
Yeah,
Come out of
yeah,
the dark
yeah.
hole. It's like, close it.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's literally built for that.
Right.
It is, it's
literally
really
built
bad.
for that.
The you behind the you in that moment is like, come back.
Yes,
you
it's
know?
like, Brenda,
yeah. You're reaching up like
Yeah,
dark
because
hole.
I'm usually in a dark hole and someone's talking to me, and I'm like, sorry, I'm listening now.
Oh my
Yeah, yeah.
gosh. I'm trying to
No,
pay
yeah, I
attention.
literally have a friend. She's like, I'm not talking to you while you're on the phone because you're
Yeah.
not listening. And I'm like, okay, right, I'm listening. You're not.
Yeah.
You're not. And it
Right.
tells it because I'm laughing. I'm like, ah,
You're like, that wasn't the right time to
it
laugh.
wasn't. And I'm always saying that's crazy. Whenever I say that, I'm not listening.
Yeah, Abby and I will just call each other out because we'll be on the phone with each other, and then it's like we know something, like the other
When the other
person's
person's
doing
doing
something,
something.
doing
Uh-huh.
something while we're talking to each other. And it's like, you doing something else right now?
Because you're not focused.
Because you'll be like, yeah, what do you think about that? Oh yeah, that's great.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling
Like, you think that's
I'm
great,
always
man?
like-
That was terrible.
I'm always, but that's why you have to say that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Because it can
That's
go
what I-
either way.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah,
It's
it's
like,
That's what I say.
man,
That's crazy. That's
That's
insane. Yeah.
like that's crazy.
I think it's really important. Something that I've been realizing is that me watching other people create, it takes away from my own creation
Absolutely.
of things, and that's like been a huge push for me away from social media. Is I'm spending an hour a day watching people do
What I
want to do.
Yep.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they're creating podcasts, you know what I mean? They're, creating funny videos or whatever it is. And I'm spending my time watching them instead of doing what I feel I was made to do. I love ideas. I love coming up with stuff. I love, this kind of stuff. It's fun for me, and then it's like I'm wasting when I could be writing myself.
Yep.
I'm watching
Yeah.
videos of how to write. It's just write yourself, like do that kind of stuff. And so I think as a creator, it's important to maybe be inspired to some degree by other people's content, like
but then do it. No, that's
then
so
do
true.
it.
Like one of my favorite people, Pastor Henry from the Belonging Code, he literally said that. He's like, I don't watch TV. He was
Right.
like, because I got tired of watching people do what I want to do.
Right.
Like I want to do that. So great that you do that, but I'm not gonna keep feeding myself with what you're doing. I'm gonna just go do what I'm gonna do.
That's
and that
good.
is so challenging because I love TV, but
Right.
I'm also have a script that I need to finish. And so I'm at home kicking it on the couch, being distracted. Somebody is living their dream, and I'm watching them live the dream that I want to live. That don't make
Right.
sense. And so I do agree there's a level of being like inspired, but then I'm also like, even for like, I used to watch like sermons on YouTube all the time, like for the sake of consuming sermons. But then when I started preaching, I stopped watching it because I'm like, I don't want anything to influence like what God wants to do. And so
Right.
there is, and when you are creative, we are inspired by things and they show up in our work, even
Right.
unintentionally. 'Cause
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
it gets in you.
yeah, it gets in you. And so like there is like this space of like being inspired, but then also like if you're a believer, there's like inspiration that comes from just sitting in his presence and you come up with like ideas like this that could be the next big thing. But if I'm
Right.
always like, and sometimes it will keep you from producing because then you'll start to measure what you do based off what you've seen someone else
Yep.
do. And you're
Right.
like, I can never do it like them, or I can never get it to this level. And people are missing out on what's on the inside of you.
Right.
And so sometimes you just got to do it. Like,
Right.
the only inspiration is that I feel like I should do this and like just try it. And it's hard because when you create in that space, so much of it is subjective to how people like it or if
Yeah.
they
Right.
engage in it, like what we create for others. And so I think you have to find balance in being okay with the fact that you did it
Right.
and released it, and that's enough.
And
Like-
start slow.
And start slow.
I think that's been a big thing for us because we haven't like gone somewhere with this yet. You know what I mean? I mean, it's my intention to reach more people and stuff like that. But I also know sometimes you got to create 100 episodes.
Yep.
You just gotta grind it out before
Yeah.
before you start to see maybe like that reach expand. Like sometimes it happens like where you're like, man, it got big and I didn't even try to get big. It just like it happened pretty quickly, and
Yeah.
then some things you just got to grind out for a while.
Yeah,
you know?
and just keep doing it. Like one of my favorite directors, Ava DuVernay, she was a publicist first, and then the first time she touched a camera, she was 35, and now she's like directed all these big things like TV shows and everything. And she's like, people always come up to me and say like, I want to be a director, and she's like, okay, great, what are you directing?
Right.
Because we can all want to do something, but like, why wait for somebody to give you a chance or an opportunity? Like you want to be a filmmaker, go make films. If
Right.
you got to do it on your iPhone. And now we have so much more access to things
Oh,
than
yeah.
people did 10 years ago. So like whatever you want to do, just do it. And when you do it and you perfect it, the moment whenever it's supposed to happen, you'll be prepared.
Right.
And like that is the biggest thing, because I don't want to say I'm a director and somebody gives me the opportunity to direct and that's the first time I've directed anything.
Right.
I absolutely don't want that to be the first
Yeah,
time.
direct a home video.
Yeah,
Do something.
do something. Like whatever that is, like start researching what it's like to be a director, like watch video, like watch in the space of like learning and perfecting the crafts, and then go do it, and
Right.
and you'll see like the fruit of that.
Right. That's good. Listen, we got to wrap up.
We gotta
We
wrap
gotta
it.
wrap it.
We got to
up.
wrap it up.
Wrappity wrap.
Any last words, Brenda, about social media? Any encouragement for the good people?
Wow,
The boggies out there?
I think we had like a couple of them.
I think we had a couple bombers.
We had like a couple bombers. It was
Yeah.
like progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
And then the thing about the slave though.
Be in the space, but
Be
not
in
a
the
slave
space, but not a slave to it. Those are all good things. I think ultimately, if you discover who you are apart from it, it won't tell you who you are. Like social media. It's like if my identity is found in this, if it's found in the likes, if it's found in the shares, if it's found in how many followers I have, then it'll continue to tell me who I am, which means that when it's not happening, I'm lost without it. But if I know Brenda before she was on social media, now I'm telling it who I am, and it's not controlling me. I'm showing up my most authentic self, and it's not revolved around if one person likes it or if nobody shares it, I'm now suck at life. It's like, no, it's not that. It's like I'm allowing who I am to be shared in this space and not allowing this space to tell me who I am.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's good.
That's real good. Well, thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. It was
You're
a blast.
dope. Yeah, it was so fun.
So
it was
fun.
so
Thanks
fun.
for being here.
Hour and 50 minutes later.
Wow.
God bless.
God bless.
God bless.
bless.
I don't know which camera to look at, but we love you, Boggies.
Love y'all.
Make sure to
Love y'all.
follow Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Get it. And check out Brenda. What's your stuff?
Everything is at I am Brenda Palmer.
At I am Brenda Palmer.
There you
and
go.
that's just on TikTok. You have a TikTok?
I don't have a TikTok. I can't do it.
That's good.
But
So
Instagram.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Facebook, Twitter, and the name of your podcast?
Life in Perspective.
Life in Perspective.
Life in Perspective. We'll make sure to say it in the intro too.
Boom, 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 boom. Thank y'all.
Bam, 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 bam,
Boom,
bam, bam,
boom,
bam, bam,
boom,
bam.
boom.
All right, everybody. Later.